And we are back here on the Choose954 podcast, episode 80, with Broward County-based artist, human being, cat lover, Jordan Guzman from her Pompano Beach home and art studio. If you didn't know about Choose954, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, started a social movement to cultivate culture and community here in Broward County, where I'm very proud to be born and raised from, in an effort to keep people in the know with all the great things that are going on, primarily within the arts and culture, in an effort to make this a better place to live and not just a better place to vacation. So the point of the podcast is to connect you, the listener, with interesting people like Jordan that do amazing things in the world, and we're hoping to blow your mind a little bit today with some things that maybe you didn't know existed, or maybe didn't know the impact of, that you might be able to integrate into your life to have a little bit more zen, a little bit more balance, and a little bit more peace. But for those that are not familiar with Jordan Guzman, who has been on the podcast previously, but under a different moniker and initiative, why don't you tell us a little bit about Jordan Guzman and your evolution as an artist and a human being down here in Broward County?
Yeah, I like that you kind of preface that, or just say artist slash human. And I would definitely lead with the human part, because the more I just get deeper into my life experience and following my natural impulses and my natural instincts and following wherever that path goes, it just always takes me back to that point of being a human being on this planet, who I believe came with a mission. And I know what that is. And just trying to be faithful to that. And I think a lot of it has started with being not just my growth as an artist, and using that title, but going way outside of that and seeing that what I'm really passionate about and what I care about expressing is really that humanity part, and us seeing, our mutual humanity in each other. And art has just become the vessel and the medium through which I can do that, and through which I can express that. So I think that thought process has been a long time coming, or maybe it's one of those things that you just always kind of know, that's like buried underneath a lot of conditioning, and that's buried underneath a lot of other voices. And I think that my evolution has just been chipping away at my conditioning and chipping away at expectations and cultural expectations, societal expectations of like who we need to be as individuals in order to be valued and validated. And this whole process for me has been about doing away with that and not looking outside of myself for any kind of validation, and just bringing it home and bringing it back to me. And the arts, again, has just been a way for me to document that process. So I don't really think of myself as like becoming an artist or living an artist's life, because when I used to say that when I was 17, when I wanted to become an artist and said like I was going to become an artist, what I really was after was this imagination and this ideal that I had in my head of what I thought being an artist would be like. And what that really was freedom. And I thought that artists live these free lives, like bohemian kind of ideal. And I'm like, oh, this is how artists are, like artists are bohemian. They don't like follow the rules. And that is very true. But then I saw too in like in growing or just building myself professionally as an artist, and having a solo exhibition last summer at the Bailey Contemporary Art and spending 10 years, cultivating this visual language and then being like, there is more that I want to say than just creating paintings that don't have words. And what I really was really after was expressing just the deeper meaning of existence that I've always been interested in. And I knew that paintings just couldn't fully capture it. So I feel like up until then, I've been in this more insular experience where I've just like pulled back a little bit and kind of really digging deep into what it is that I want to say. And that's where my direction is going now. So I feel like I spent a lot of time cultivating like a visual arts title or something, visual artist title. And now I'm like, oh, forget that. Like, we're just human.
Well, you're
Like,
so much more than that, and you've done a lot of work on that, which we're going to get to
yeah.
later on in the podcast here. But I really liked how you framed that you came with a mission, and you've been being faithful to that. And things really start to shift when you live life with intention, when you do things with
Mm-hmm.
intention. If
Mm-hmm.
you go to a yoga class in a studio, the teacher, instructor will generally say at the beginning of class, take a moment to set your intention and seal your intention for this class. And for myself, for yourself, for all the yogis in the world, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely makes a big shift when you
Mm-hmm.
live life with intention. And I'm excited for you to share some of those practices and some of that growth
Mm-hmm.
and progress that you've made in a little bit. But before we get
Mm-hmm.
there, for those that are not familiar with your work, and
Mm-hmm.
as you alluded to, you have been painting for a few years and reached a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good level of establishment for an artist, having a solo show
Mm-hmm.
at a major cultural arts center, being an exhibiting artist at Art Fort Lauderdale for multiple years.
Yeah.
What what is your? I know your art has evolved, so could you maybe walk us through how your
Yeah.
work has evolved and the work that you're
Sure.
currently producing now? For
Sure.
those that are not familiar.
Yeah. Let me paint a picture because I have to remember too, Evan, that we've had so many conversations like on our own and just on a different level. And I have to remember like, that um for people to get to know me in that way. So I have a fine.
Don't be afraid to tell them, like, you went to art school, and I know you're very
Yeah,
modest and
that's
very
where I was
humble.
going now. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I forget. Like I feel sometimes that I'm like uh, you know, because I have like one head in most of my time is like spent in the clouds and like daydreaming that I'm like, oh yeah, I like did actual things, like I've done very practical things that have led me to this direction. And so yeah, let me bring it down to earth and like explain my background and everything. So I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida. I moved to I graduated with a fine arts degree. I specialized in painting. And I want to backtrack a little bit because um, I think for a lot of artists' journeys or creative, I don't even want to say artists, but just creative people, or if you have a different kind of vision for what your life is looking like or feeling like it needs to go somewhere else. I knew I was creative growing up. Like I had things that I really liked. I like poetry. I got into little contests and things like that. Um, and I wrote a lot too. I had a diary that I was like really attached to. But I can't, Evan, I can't talk about my art journey without talking about my spiritual journey because they're so intertwined. And I can't separate the two. So I have a lot of cousins. We all grew up together. I grew up in Orlando with my dad's side of the family. My dad came from Ecuador to New York in the 80s, and then from there met my mom, and then came down to Florida. And then all of his siblings followed suit, and we all grew up really, close knit family, all within probably 10 miles of each other or less, and even living with each other at some points or next door or on the other street. So that has um family and upbringing has a lot to do with my spiritual journey and my art, because I feel like at the end of the day that's really what I'm sorting out. But when I was 17, one of my cousins that came, my whole group of excuse me, my aunt with her daughters, my cousins, came from Ecuador later than my uncles and my other uncles and aunts. So there was this whole portion of my early life that didn't involve this family, and they came, and then we kind of like got to know them and everything. They integrated with the rest of us. Well, in 2017, my youngest cousin, he was 10 years old. He passed away, and he was the youngest of 12, 15 of us. I lose count. And that was, I mean, really traumatic for our family, because it wasn't just really like our first death in the family. He was the youngest of all, everybody. He was our baby. And I still kind of put pin that event in my life as a full blown awakening about existence. And it was kind of one of those things where like nothing was the same after that. And I thought about my place in life. I woke up and I was like, I was getting ready to graduate college. I mean, excuse me, high school. And I just was like sitting in school, and I never really was like that into school. And I felt like I woke up and looking around the classroom and being like, like, why doesn't anybody care about all these other issues? Like, I started questioning everything. I wasn't like, I just felt like I woke up and I was really considering my place in the world, and how I didn't fit into like a traditional educational model, and it didn't work for me. And I got more involved in school, and I got my grades up because I was going through a lot of anxiety and depression in my teens. And that really set me on a track to really care about my life and to really consider that I had some type of purpose or something, that I feel like a light switch turned on, and I had this like vitality to move and to see my life through, which I didn't have. I felt like I was very sleepy. And that's when I decided. I took my first art class, like real art class, in the last semester of high school. And I was like, well, let me do it. I have like an elective, fine. And I did it, and I excelled, and it was like I did really well. And then there I was like, oh, I'm going to be an artist. And then I exploded creatively and just made that decision, like, I'm going to dedicate my life to this. And I decided to do that in college. But I do have like multiple interests. So if you're like a creative person, I mean, I'm sure you resonate with that, being a polymath, and also feeling like uh, a self-taught person. I did go to school, and I'm like traditional formally trained, but I really did feel like I was like just a self-taught person. Like I didn't want to put my education and my knowledge in somebody else's hands. So I'm always like researching and pursuing my interests and really, really digging deep in things that I want to know about. But that instance with my little cousin passing away unexpectedly and from a rare amoebic infection, which is like literally 1 in a million, and the impact that it has had on my life is like tremendous. So I graduated um, from college 2015 from UCF. And then I moved to Plantation and I was teaching at a Montessori Reggio school for 6 years. I kind of climbed the ladder there from art teacher to co-admin and of the school. And that was up until 2021. And then I decided to quit or to move on rather from that. And from then I feel like I've jumped and this really big leap and and I have put so much trust in myself and trust in the universe that that following my dreams and that following my interests and following my instincts would lead me to exactly where I have needed to go in my life. So all these life experiences that I've had have just been like awakening after awakening, and they really push me forward. And I feel very strong that I know no other way. Like I don't know any other way to do it. And to be, and I'm like trying to always like find what the box I've put myself in so I can like crash out of it, or finding all these like mental prisons that I put myself in and breaking out of it. And I feel like I go into these like rabbit holes of thinking too, because my spiritual life and what I've been able to like accomplish here on earth and like that realm are so intertwined, and and to separate the two is like um I don't know, like they all lend each other. Does that make sense? Like,
I know we're doing this on an audio format, so they can't necessarily see your work. I might try to edit
yeah.
in on the video version, but for those that are not familiar with your work, could you just try to paint a visual picture, at least to the aesthetic and
I'm like, I
style?
try to paint a visual picture of my life. I'm like, oh shoot, that was the question.
No, no,
Like,
that was a good
what
answer.
art
That
do
was a
you
good
make?
answer. That's why we love you, Jordan.
Okay. You can see it on my website at jordanguzmanart.com. All right. So very big. Let me try. This is like a challenge for me right now. I make, I have made acrylic paintings on canvas, monochromatic, very minimal images that are tied to, I really love texture, balance, and color, and how they all come together to create a sense of calm and a sense of peace. And I create my paintings and my visual artwork to soothe me. So I try to create pictures that have some type of, like, when I see it, I want to just kind of hang back and look at it and meditate. So they're most of my images from when I'm thinking about my solo exhibition, The Edge of 17, that was at the Bailey Contemporary Art. It was really like a retrospective on a lot of different parts of me. So some of the artwork in there was small drawings and paintings, like a set of 5 that were snapshots and visions of dreams that I've had and very intense emotional experiences, and a visual picture that pops in my head and that I have to paint. So there are a series of drawings. There are also multimedia um, artworks that I take dried flowers or flowers that have been gifted to me and given to me for whatever reason, and dry them out, cut them up, classify them, and spend this like months in between, like creating this ritual around kind of deconstructing the flowers and then constructing them again on a canvas and to create one image. And then my bigger acrylic paintings that are mostly monochromatic, and a lot of warm tones that I use. So I like to create pictures that remind me of being in nature and being calm and soothed. So is that better? Did that,
Ooh,
did you,
yeah.
did you, did you get that?
I feel like I'm in nature here. You
Yay.
describe your work. No, it's super cool, and we were super fortunate to have supported Jordan's practice and development with exhibiting at Art Fort Lauderdale, the Art Fair on the Water, and
Yeah.
participating in the Choose954 Local Artist Discovery Series at YOLO, which I know was very
Mm,
outside your comfort zone
mm-hmm,
at that
mm-hmm,
time, but it's just
mm-hmm,
another testament to your growth process and development. Um, and and on this path and on this journey, I commend you for being called to want to help others and want to help share your experiences, your
mm-hmm,
knowledge, your teachings, not just with the little ones with Montessori school at that time that it
mm-hmm,
was, a part of your life, but now with AIM and art and its
mm-hmm,
meaning. So for those that are not familiar with AIM, we did do a podcast previously with
mm-hmm.
Jordan's partner on this venture. But could you tell us a little bit more about AIM?
Yes. So Art in its meaning, or AIM, is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to create spaces where people are encouraged to freely express their innate creativity. And we are, my partner and I, Melissa Lynette Danielson, you can also follow her work and see her work at Melissa Lynette Art on Instagram. And Lynette is Linnette. And we really created this organization to do that and host events and create an environment for people to come and really share and be vulnerable and have a positive sounding board to encourage them to and to validate their unique vision. Because especially coming from um, Melissa's graduated from UF in Gainesville, um, and she specialized in ceramics. So we both have a similar formal training background, and we met at the school that we were teaching at. And we were working together on these projects, and we found that we built a natural rapport with each other and just became like really close friends. But not only because it's one thing to, you have your close friends, but then friends that understand you so well that you could actually co-create with and move, like have a shared vision for what you want to create in the community. That's a whole other um thing, and I've been so thankful to, have met her and to partnered with her to create this. But it was a long time coming because we would, after a long days of teaching, we'd go to La Bamba, get margaritas, and by the end, like when they're ready to close down and we're still there, just dreaming and envisioning all of this stuff that we wanted to do. And we'd be like, wouldn't it be so cool to have like artists come and do critiques and all of this stuff and blah blah blah. And then when she stopped working there in 2020, and then when I stopped working there in 2021, and I had this whole summer like sabbatical to really think about how I wanted to move forward, I called her up in August of last year and was like, we got to do it. We have to do this. Like, there's no time like now. And and so we first started with the artist meetups, and our vision was the same. We wanted to create spaces where people are encouraged and to express their innate creativity, and we wanted to invite the artists to come and bring their artwork and have us talk about it. And we got the name Art and Its Meaning from a book that I have called Dreams and Their Meanings. And art, they are very subjective. The artist has this meaning and own personal relationship with the symbols and the visual language that they're using to create a whole picture. And you put it in front of somebody, and there's this whole process of how to extract meaning from all of these symbols in front of you. And we wanted to kind of treat it like a dream, and to, you know, I mean, like, dreams take on like really interesting meanings, like for you as an individual. And then I feel like putting a painting in front of somebody is kind of like how you want to express your dream to other people, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and want to dissect it and everything. So we pulled that, and we're like, what if we do like art and its meaning, because it's like the deeper meaning of, you know, dreams and all of this stuff, because both of us are very spiritually inclined too. So that was really great. We wanted to do that, and for it to, I how I feel like it separates from other art critique groups was, in college we have, you know, you have professors, they know, quote unquote, they know more than you, and they have more experience and more knowledge and whatever, and you listen to them, and they get to decide what is good and what is not. And also it's very heavy on art jargon, and very heavy intellectualization of art. And we wanted to create a space where it's not just heady, and it's not, because you can sit in a freaking artist talk, and it's like the jargon can lose people very quick on an artist
Mm-hmm.
talk. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that talk. I can read a statement and I can pull out an artist statement that sounds like freaking, but like so elitist, you know? And, but that to me is like such a disconnect, because art is so primal, and art is so like necessary to, for survival, like to have beautiful things, to be around beautiful things, is so primitive, that to kind of paint it or create this space where like is just very yeah, like over intellectualization of it is not interesting to me anymore. Like
Correct.
it was in college, but it's not interesting to me anymore now. And I feel like it can lose a lot of people. So the spaces that we've been able to create are ones where people can come and just be like, wow, like I never saw that in my artwork, or just to be encouraged, or like if they want to go get like ripped apart and like have really heavy critique, I feel like our space is maybe not the space for them. But probably after every one of our meetings, you know, people leave like refreshed and inspired. And we've been very, you know, fortunate to be able to like provide that for the community, because not every, you leave art school and you don't have that. And
Correct. And it is a community. You really have built a community with these meetups.
yeah, that's just crazy. It's like still blowing my mind that like that this has happened, that we've, I think the most beautiful thing is that we had an idea and then did things to make the idea into reality. And it's so simple, but it is just a beautiful expression of creativity. And
Amen.
not just,
And
yeah, go ahead.
well, no, finish.
I lost my train of thought. So
No, well, one thing you mentioned, you're like, it's not like the other art critique meetups that are generally, um, a little bit more intellectual or a little bit more heavy. Well, unfortunately, we really don't have too many of those, especially
mm,
here in
mm-hmm,
Broward. Of
yeah,
course, in Miami, there are some. And then if you get invited, which I've come to find, some of the other ones with like some of the higher level artists that I know,
mm-hmm,
they're generally more closed off groups. It's generally
yeah,
more invite
yeah,
only, quote
yeah,
unquote, the cool kids club, although
mm-hmm,
they are nice people. I respect them. But
mm-hmm,
nevertheless,
mm-hmm,
I commend you guys for having it A, open, B, inclusive, C, free.
mm-hmm,
In an art space, you've
mm-hmm,
been hosting them periodically and occasionally at our Zero Empty Spaces location in Gulfstream
mm-hmm,
Park in Hollandale. And it's really had from from me
Mm-hmm.
attending and from what I've heard from other people that have attended, it's really had a profound impact on artists' lives to be able to get that feedback. Because one of the biggest things that I've come to find from interacting and working with artists that primarily work at home or work alone,
Mm-hmm.
if you go and turn your wife, husband, partner, spouse, roommate,
Mm-hmm.
father, brother, sister, mother, and you say, "Hey, how does this look after you're done with the painting?" And they say, "Oh, that's nice, honey." That's one
Yeah.
thing. But when you get feedback from your contemporary, your peer,
Mm-hmm.
your creative, it's a really
Mm-hmm.
powerful thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I commend you guys for doing that. You
Thank
do have
you.
your next one coming up. So for those that would like to be a part of it, could you give us the details about actually your next two
Yes.
events?
Yep. So Saturday, September 17th, we are from 4 to 6 p.m. We are being hosted by Andrea Dent, artist at Zero Empty Spaces at Gulfstream Park. And it's number 11. Is that right?
Correct.
That Zero Empty Spaces. So we'll be there. And we also have, okay, so Melissa and I started this thing for the artist meetups. And then we expanded, and we're going to continue to expand, but we expanded our what we wanted to offer the community to children. So, and we decided we actually kicked it off this summer, in June being our first um uh open studio art experience to children. And we have called it AIM, or art and its meaning, AIM Petite Apprenticeship Program. And our last one of the fall or of the season is Saturday, September 17th. It's on the same day as the artist meetup, but from 10 to 11 a.m. at Holland Park in Hollywood, Florida. And this one in particular is open to preschool aged children. So 2 to like 4 years old.
And if they want to get more information or
So if
RSVP,
you
where can
want, yes, follow us on AIM South Florida on Instagram. And there we have the flyers and post it. So it's a mixed bag for these events. We're seeing like how people learn about it and how people come to it. And most of it has been word of mouth. So every single time, Evan, like every single time we've like tried to do like a formal thing where we get everybody who's coming, everybody who says they're going to come, like on paper, doesn't come, and a whole new set of different people come that you would have never imagined. Like you'd even like, I've had to like backtrack so far, like
correct,
how they even heard about us.
correct.
So we have like been so open to, like, this is where I feel like our kind of like spiritual beliefs and what we believe about how we can run this organization in a way that's different from maybe what we thought that we had to do. Was we were kind of like, let's just do it, and we're going to show up and we're going to do the event, we're going to show up, and whoever freaking comes is whoever needs to come. And because everything that I feel like just the universe has been like defying or all our expectations for how, people come to these events. So it's kind of one of those things that we're like, and I used to do the painting lives that way too. Like when I did them at YOLO and all these other experiences where I would just be like, okay, universe, like I'm showing up at this time and I'm going to be there. I'm inspired. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to express myself. And whoever needs to come and see my art, or whoever wants to come and chat, or whoever, like I'm leaving that totally open. And I think I've been delighted and surprised like every step of the way. So we've really taken that approach to the artist meetups too. Because when we did our first meeting, we were doing it at Moksha House that closed down now, but on Sunrise.
Mm.
And we just did it. We're like, and we were renting it, like we were paying for it. And we're like, whoever shows up is going to show up. And it was 2 artists that showed up, and we were so happy. Like we were so happy. We're like, it's not just me and you, like, and we were like, even if it is just me and you, like me and Melissa, we'll sit here, we'll talk about our own art. And every time we kind of pass these milestones, we have to remember where we're like, I'm like, you know, let's keep that same mentality of like, we're going to build it and people will come. And we're going to keep expressing ourselves, making our artwork, talking about it. And the soul tribe and the soul family and the people who need to come to this, like, will come. And it's been like great to see it evolve into its own thing. And that Melissa and I are just keepers of it, you know, of this organization, and that it'll morph into what it needs to morph into.
And taking a note from Jordan's podcasting experience, we will put the links in the show notes, aka the comments, so that you can find out more yourself. I really do commend you guys for creating this space and creating this container, and really bring an offering that has been missing from even where I sit in the community, especially here in Broward County. It's a valuable thing that you're doing for artists, and I certainly encourage artists of any level, or if you know an artist of any level, emerging, mid-career, established, even blue chip artists could, you know, benefit from some critique and feedback from their contemporaries and their peers. So I definitely encourage you guys to check out and attend that. But now to the actual really interesting part of the podcast that we were really looking forward to share with you. And the reason why I even know how to use terms like container is something Jordan and I and many people also share, that's had profound impacts on our lives and the world, and hopefully even potential the world at large, if we could really share these messages, are our spiritual practices and routines. I would certainly invite the floor to you, Jordan, to open up and share anything that you're comfortable with. I'll share some of my context and routines afterwards. And I really hope, if these are things that you might not be familiar with, or they might not be things that you're accustomed to, you know, sit back and listen and receive this information with an open mind. I was not into yoga. I was not into meditation or mindfulness just 2 years ago. And thankfully it fell into my life in such a way that's had profound impacts. And Jordan has been doing this for even longer than that. So Jordan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your spiritual practices and routines and how they've impacted your life?
I wrote down some like things that just pops up in my mind initially. But I also think that there's a bigger picture for how I see my life that helps me move through life easily. And so the things that I wrote down is brain dumps. And I write those in my notes. I used to journal a lot and write a lot. For whatever reason, probably like my hand, I just can't bring myself to write physically as much as I used to, like pages and pages and pages and pages of stuff. So now I've just turned to kind of opening up notes and creating a heading, and then just writing whatever, or typing up really whatever is on my my mind. And I think part of it is because I have dyslexia, and so writing becomes, when my thoughts are like spitfire, it becomes almost a burden to physically write, because I'm like, I feel like I'm stumbling and tripping over a lot of letters, and then I can't even read it when I look back. So typing and doing brain dumps that way have really helped me. Talking to myself, like going out on solo hikes, and I've made it a practice to visit different parks in the area that have really long trails, and I love finding a trail that has like nobody on it, and where I can project my voice and talk to myself out loud and sort through my thoughts that way. Or not even sort, not even always trying to make sense of it, but just getting it out. A lot of alone time. And in that time, I have come to build up a practice of daydreaming, and that's like my meditation. Being around a group of people who are talking, like who I'm spending my time with, how, like, I will envision myself, like right now I have a vision of myself being in my room or in a studio space, like sorting through ideas, writing, researching. And I do that because I know then that I'm just going to be walking into that. And I trust that I will walk into that. So these are not things that I'm like, okay, every morning, every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, I'm going to be doing my spiritual practice. It's so organic to me that I don't necessarily like schedule times, specific times to do that. So instead of seeing my life through just spiritual practices that I do in order to kind of be the medium through which I gain some type of like insights, those are tools, but what they express is a greater value that I want to live my life by, which is like one of my biggest values is freedom. And my spirituality or spiritual part of me is a value that I want to live by. And I think that would probably be better said as like knowledge, like seeking knowledge and wisdom as being a value. And that those are things that I do to live that out. And not just that, but creativity is a big value of mine. So even if I'm not like Monday through Wednesday, I'm going to be painting on this one painting and finishing that painting. The way that I think about it is I live about my one of my biggest values is creativity. So even if I'm not painting, I'm working on my organization, I'm creating memories, I'm living my life, so I feel like that relieves a lot of pressure on me to have very strict expectations on myself that are very hard to attain, and very high standards, and that people, society, our families place on us. And I feel like those kinds of expectations for they're just like hard, like I can't even live up to my own expectations, let alone like the other people in my life. So I feel like living a value driven life, and not, I would even dare like to say, like not even just goal driven. Like I don't see my life as outcomes that I have to strive for, because I don't even do my art that way, because my art is not outcome oriented, it's process oriented. Whatever we do in AIM is process oriented. The kind of spaces that we create and the kind of activities that we want to do are process oriented. So why would I take, the art that I create and my creative process is very open-ended and very fluid, and I'm open to intuition and I'm open, but in my regular life, quote, my separate regular life, it's not that way. And I don't separate the two, and they're very integrated. So I live my life that way, being very open and fluid and letting things flow, and going with my own internal rhythm for how the stars aligned throughout all my lineage, the body I was born with, the brain that I was born with, the heart that I was born with, like everything. I want to follow that instead of the other way around, where I'm using what other people have constructed for how people need to live and following that and trying to attain that. So it is a little different because I don't see my life as like by like I have to attain all these things and then I'll be successful. I
Mm-hmm.
think that living a successful or being successful is living according to my values. And at the end of the day, even if I don't hit these external markers of traditional success, I
Mm-hmm.
know that what I'm doing is amazing because it means something to me because I'm following what it is that is in my heart and in my mind and I know that I can create very impactful, meaningful experiences by talking to the mailman, like, or
Amen.
talking to, or taking care of my cat, or taking care of the people that I love.
Mm.
And that relieves so much pressure because what I said earlier about having this vision for my life being 17, like, oh, I want to live this bohemian, like, or I want to be like artists because artists are free. And it's not that way. Artists fall into that same trap of putting, you know, these traditional markers of success, putting a lot of pressure on themselves to strive and the same way that non-artists or non-creative people do. So I kind of saw very quickly that what I was really after wasn't the artist life, it was freedom. And that wasn't just freedom from 9 to 5, it was like internal freedom because everybody has things that keep them from being free. And art, it can't even be the savior. It can be an escape and, you know, and stuff like that. But um, I feel like um, what is, what has the realizations that I've come to throughout my own life experience is following that internal guide and quieting the noises and the noise and all the external stuff. And we don't like that. Like nobody wants to sit with themselves and listen to the shit that we, excuse my language, like spew
Mm-hmm.
out to ourselves. That didn't even come from us. Like and came from a lot of conditioning. So it's like why would I spend my life trying to live out expectations, standards, markers of success that I don't even believe in because seeing a whole culture and a whole society try to strive for external success and validation and be like have very high statistics of loneliness and depression and anxiety. So it's like why would I put myself into that trap? And I don't. So I've been very like determined to live my life on my own terms, even if it means I don't make art for 2 years, even
Mm-hmm.
if it means like I don't pick up a paintbrush, because I will not do it. I will not do it just because. I will not do it just because, oh, it means I'm disciplined and I need to like, and it's painful. And I've constructed my life in a way to give myself that opportunity. And, you know, I think I've been very, like focused on that. Um, and very persistent in looking at myself continually to see my blind spots, my defense mechanisms, my traumas, and all of those things that keep me from living according to my values. And that is what I want to create in life because every time I have turned a stone or looked in the mirror and been really honest with myself, you know, and invite change in, every time I've done that, it's only been for the good because then I have even more deeper intimacy with people in my life. And I think at the end of the day, like that's what we need and that's what we want. And a lot of stuff go like the world is so busy and it's distracting and everything, you can't hear your voice. You can't hear that voice. And it's very easy to let other people outside of you dictate what is good and what is not good. And I'm like, I know what's good for me. I know what's good for me, and I'm going to give myself the time and the space to let that person inside come through, and I don't think that, like, that's something that artists, this is a human thing. It's not an artist thing. This is this is just a human thing. So I've come, like, I know with you too, like, we've been, like, you're working the arts and you're like, oh, there's like a deeper thing going on here, or like a bigger picture to this, where it's not just about the arts and stuff. It's like, it's evolving into something different. And I feel the same way, where I was like, oh, it's just about the arts. It's, just about the arts. But then I'm like, I don't, if somebody wants to come to me and say, like, hey, I want to learn how to paint, I'm not going to start with like, with the elements of design and principles of art anymore. Like, for me, it's like, what is your story and what is it that you need to say? And then the techniques are in service to that story. And I feel like the story and the human experience comes first, and then the art follows. Because it's for that, it's for expression. And that's one of my values too, is like personal expression, like self-expression. So I have these, and they're always kind of morphing, but I have these values that anytime I get lost in life, where I feel lost, but I know it's just a moment of uncertainty. Anytime I feel like that, I go back and I write down what my values are. And I look at that list and I'm like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay because I'm living that. And people will look at they get lost on their goals and their outcomes and go, let me look back at my goals and my outcome. Like, no, I didn't make that thing. What, are you a failure now? Like, no, you're not. So no, you lived according to the value of determination. Then you feel a lot better because you haven't got there, but you're determined, and that's your value, and you live according to that. So it's like, for me, everything, all spiritual practice, all wisdom, all searching and seeking and finding is really just about coming home and being okay and being at peace and knowing and having faith that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. Like, it's an okay. Like, you have trust, and like you're rooted and grounded in what you know. And if you don't have that, like, basic trust and inner trust, not that it's going to work out, not that you'll get it, but that you will be okay. Because at the end of the day, this goes back to my early experience of my little cousin passing away, is that is the end. Like, that is the end for all of us. And we can't take our accolades and we can't take any of that. But people, remember how you impacted them. And that has nothing to do with the plaques and all of that stuff. It doesn't. It's like, I want to know that at the end, I was able to love, and that I was able to be loved. And
Amen.
And not even like, oh, I didn't complete my mission of creating an organization, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I just want to love, and I want to be loved. And love, and I want to be loved.
I wish people had value notebooks instead of just goal-driven notebooks. And the thing that kept coming up to me that I kept hearing was the values. And when you live a value-driven life, and when you understand what your values are, and you alluded to, society, unfortunately, very capitalistic. It's very black and white. It's very, we got to do things to make money. No, you can, you know, have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health or
Yeah.
your wellness or your peace of
Mm-hmm.
mind or or just, you know, your sanity, then
Mm-hmm.
that money really can't, you know,
Yeah.
do all the things that it could possibly do for you.
Yeah.
And it's just not you know, these are not easy times for anybody, but thankfully
Mm-hmm.
with simple tools and resources and practices, like you mentioned, just simply going for a walk outside in nature,
Mm-hmm.
going for a hike, journaling. I think people truly underestimate and undervalue
Mm-hmm.
the power of putting pen to paper and writing
Mm-hmm.
down your thoughts and what
Mm-hmm.
that can
Mm-hmm.
mean from a
Mm-hmm.
manifestation
Absolutely.
or goal setting or whatever perspective. Um, it's powerful stuff. It's proven and it's tried and true. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. And I certainly think that that's going to strike a chord with, you know, somebody that's sitting there having gone through a similar trajectory, a similar path in life, and then you kind of hit the wall, you hit this
Mm-hmm.
rut, and then how do you get out of that? Well, I mean, in my
Mm-hmm.
experience, and you know, you were alluding to, I have made art my life to as an advocate, as a
Mm-hmm.
community builder, as a creative entrepreneur, and you know, found myself in all reality, admittedly, taking on more than I could chew, and
Yeah.
people, you know, before COVID were realizing I was burning myself out. I didn't realize I was burning myself
Mm-hmm.
out. I thought this
Mm-hmm.
is what I was called to do, but
Mm-hmm.
fortunately, God bless the universe,
Mm-hmm.
this magical gift called yoga, you know,
Mm-hmm.
fell into my lap, which has taught me more about myself, my body,
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm potential of, and what the mind's potential of, than
Mm-hmm.
almost anything else, which led to having for me and yoga. Obviously, being the physical practice is what people generally think of, but it's so much more than that. It's really
Mm-hmm.
helped me open up my mindfulness practice and having a daily meditation practice and doing simple, easy breathwork
Mm-hmm.
exercises and just even being intentional with your breath, going back to what we were kind of saying at the beginning of the podcast about
Mm-hmm.
living with intention and having intention in everything that you do, and how the
Mm-hmm.
yoga teacher asks you to set and seal your intention at the beginning of the practice, and how powerful and impactful
Mm-hmm.
that can be. And since I've decided to live my life with this
Mm-hmm.
intention, I mean, profound, tremendous impacts for me personally and professionally, just in terms of having more energy, having more clarity,
Mm-hmm.
having better peace of mind. My value system has
Mm-hmm.
completely shifted. We've always been doing this work, myself and Andrew, very
Mm-hmm.
altruistically for the betterment of
Mm-hmm.
the community. But now I really do value those small wins. I, similarly
Mm-hmm.
to you, would host an event, see however many RSVPs on the list, not see those RSVPs show up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to get frustrated as an event producer, as an
Mm-hmm.
event organizer. But when you are aligned with your values, when you are
Mm-hmm.
aligned with your mission, and when you do, you know, don't sweat the small stuff and celebrate the small wins,
Mm-hmm.
it really does shift your perspective. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
I really think now that I've changed my path and started becoming more of a yoga and a mindfulness expert,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
expert, advocate, and
Mm-hmm.
practitioner. It's truly impacted the work that I do in the community. We now
Yeah.
integrate a guided meditation or breathwork exercise before creative Zen to help everybody get into a more relaxed and elevated
Mm-hmm.
state to
Mm-hmm.
receive the talk that they're about to listen to. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
we're here to help. If you ever have any questions, you can reach out to Jordan or myself for tips, tricks,
Mm-hmm.
practices, breathwork
Yeah.
exercises. It's really interesting how we've kind of, and you really actually helped key me into a lot of this, how the evolution of what we refer to as these woo-woo practices
Mm-hmm.
have evolved, and now what they were previously considered quote unquote woo-woo or quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote out there before, but now they're becoming kind of
Mm-hmm.
more modern and mainstream. So
Mm-hmm.
what how have you noticed
Mm-hmm.
the evolution of
Mm-hmm.
this spiritual practices and this path
Yeah.
evolve in society in 2022
Yeah.
now?
Um, in my late teens to early 20s, I have a very interesting like religious upbringing, non-traditional, but when I was um late teens and early 20s, I took myself to like evangelical Christianity, an evangelical church. And and then I left it. And I left being like, I'm an atheist, like the complete opposite. Like, I don't believe in God at all. And I don't like, it was just like 180 because it wasn't just a concept of something else bigger than me that I was defining. I was also battling my experience of traditional evangelical Christianity, and I couldn't separate the culture of that of evangelical Christianity, the culture of it, from the idea of connecting to something deeper. So when I left, I was like, I don't want any of it at all. But I've always been I had like a friend, who was Christian, who talked about astrology, and I was really intrigued by it. So forget it. Like once I left, I was like, everything's game. Everything I've ever wanted to like research that was completely not okay with researching in Christianity, I was like, I wanted to go for it. And I learned about all religions, and I was like drawn to everything. I was soaking everything up. And I really did really get into astrology. But at that time, when I was 22, it's like 2000, before, like around maybe like 2009, I was going like into college or something. But around that time, like that was not in the mainstream, like people talking about astrology like they do now on social media. Like just
Mm-hmm.
being like, yeah, the full moon is in Pisces, like everybody get your like whatever. And then there's this whole like broad culture about it. And even like bringing yoga and meditation to the West, and like convincing people that it's like, no, it's good. In Christianity, like if you did yoga and meditation, like you were dancing with the devil. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's how it was seen. And I think now it's evolved in Christian culture probably to like integrate these practices, and you like meditate on God and whatever. Like that was already a thing in Christianity, where you like pick a Bible verse and you meditate on it and you think about it. So it's not that far off. And there's a lot of spiritual people like in the Bible or whatever, who put themselves in trance states to like connect with God. So I think that through my own life experience, like I had to have that experience and completely detach and completely be like, no, I don't want any of this, and then slowly rebuild my idea and my particular belief system that works for me. It has to work for me. So I cannot buy into a concept of spirit, God, universe that is criticizing me, is judging me, is like a mean parent. Like I cannot have that idea of some, like I want a supportive team, and not even just one, but like
Hmm.
a spirit team, like a team of people. And I believe like, so being grounded in um my root chakra, and building that internal trust, is that internal trust that I'm being guided, and that I'm being faithful to where I need to go, and that my steps, wherever I land my feet, is kind of where I need to be, and that I just walk in faith, knowing that I will be okay, and knowing, and not just okay on this earth, but in the next life, or whatever comes after, that I'll be okay. And then I already have that as my end goal. Like I already know the end from the beginning in a sense, where I'm like, okay, well, I already know I'm going to die. So, what is, like, I'm safe and I'm okay. And I think yeah, these practices and just spirituality, not traditional religion, being in the mainstream is so helpful for a lot of people, because then you can connect. You can just like DIY your spiritual belief system, and I don't think that, I don't believe that any one group has the one answer, but I do know that people all want the same thing. It's like internal peace. And you can find that in a variety of ways. And I'm very happy and excited that whether you're doing astrology or yoga or Kabbalah or whatever it is, a little bit of it, all of it, like an a la carte thing, that people have a lot more freedom to express themselves in a lot of different ways that weren't okay before. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that. And not only, spirituality, but also how people relate to their issues, like traumas and stuff is in the zeitgeist too. There's a lot of, on the internet, there's a lot of us and a lot of people who like talk about it, and it can be like easy. I just think that, like, in my own experience, um you have to have a discerning, like, spirit, I guess, to see what is really for you and what's not for you. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're somebody that just like buys into anything, I feel like you could kind of get lost in the inundation of material that there is online.
Very easily.
um yes, like lost in the sauce of the internet and what people say about what you need to know about your personal healing and all of that stuff. And I have like an internal guide that is kind of like, that might be for me, but maybe not right now. Or I'm really
Yes.
focused and more interested on this right now, and I need to see where that goes before I can jump to something else. So
Yes.
it's all like following me. For me, it's following my instincts, following my interests, and really listening to myself
Amen.
and what catches my eye, ear, and heart and soul at the moment, and letting that guide me.
And what you're called to, and what feels true and authentic to you, because
Yeah.
there is a lot of noise, not just noise. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of things
Yeah.
out there to explore. Some of them might be more aligned, and some of them might not be aligned, and that's all well and good.
Mm-hmm.
And they could all be beneficial things. I'm going to throw a couple terms out there. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
state these terms, like astral projection, the Akashic
Mm-hmm.
records, somatic breathing,
Mm-hmm.
Reiki,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kundalini yoga. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
these are all things that I have not actually. I've maybe dabbled just a little bit. I've tried Kundalini once. I tried Reiki once, but
Mm-hmm.
these were not
Mm-hmm.
things that I've elected to dive
Mm-hmm.
deep into. Though
Mm-hmm.
they're out there, they're
Mm-hmm.
accessible on the internet. They're accessible in person in the community as well. But they work
Mm-hmm.
for some, and maybe they work better for others. Some
Mm-hmm.
people maybe simply just being in nature, maybe
Mm-hmm.
simply just listening to music. That can be
Mm-hmm.
therapeutic and have healing or growth or the benefits that one seeks if they know it or not. So life is is an
Mm-hmm.
investigation process, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always continuing to unfold and develop. And you find the things that work for you that you feel comfortable with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One thing that people find interesting, my cousin keeps asking me about, is that I wanted to make a point to share and put on record here is my morning routine and how
Mm-hmm.
it's impacted me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this has probably evolved from when we did your podcast last year,
Mm-hmm.
the Breakdown to Build
Mm-hmm.
Up
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
It's definitely evolved. Um, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I have just a simple, brief moment of gratitude where I smile and just recognize the fact that I'm
Mm-hmm.
alive. And that's like
Mm-hmm.
the best way to start the day. Easiest,
Mm-hmm.
simplest thing you can do. As I roll over and grab my phone, I don't start scrolling. I
Uh-huh.
immediately put on affirmations. I
Mm-hmm.
am generally I am affirmations, which if you're not familiar, it's subconsciously programming your brain by hearing these positive reinforcing statements
Mm-hmm.
over and over again that subconsciously help you embrace and ultimately believe and embody these things. I am beautiful. I am healthy. I am whole. I am alive. I am liked. I am
Mm-hmm.
loved, whatever they may be. And I generally try to rotate the affirmations instead of listening to the same one daily, but ton of them available on YouTube. So as I begin to play the I am affirmations, I do a brief, like 5 minute mobility, basically light stretch in bed, knees to
Mm-hmm.
chest, supine twists, just a couple little stretches, and then I get out of bed and do a couple stretches along the edge of the bed. Um, then I continue to go about my morning, go to the bathroom, drink some water. Um,
Mm-hmm.
After about 10 or 15 minutes affirmations, I switch to positive motivational videos on YouTube, listening to them, just the audio. And generally nowadays, these guys are friggin' phenomenal who come up with these videos. They'll sprinkle in not just I love David Goggins and Eric Thomas and Gary Vee, but they'll even sprinkle
Mm-hmm.
in like TD Jakes and like Joel Osteen
Mm. Oh yeah, yeah.
and like Les Brown and some of these guys
Mm-hmm.
that yes, they were like a little bit more religious, but they
Mm-hmm.
generally are integrating more of like the spiritual side.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
actually one of the easiest, keyest, most fundamental parts of my morning routine that I could share with anybody uh, if you have some experience or background in a spiritual or mindful practice or not, these can relate to anybody. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be woo woo to get
Mm-hmm.
the motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I eat my breakfast. I'm taking my vitamins and supplements, which I could put in the show notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal, amount of things that I take that help me get ready for my day, and then I
Mm-hmm.
meditate. After
Mm-hmm.
that, brush my
Mm-hmm.
teeth in between there. Um, do a 10-minute most days guided meditation. There's one channel on YouTube that I listen to and subscribe to religiously called Great Meditation. The woman has a phenomenal voice. She has really good presence. Some days it's 5 minutes. I generally just try to do the new one that they put out every day or the last one
Mm-hmm.
they put out. And then sometimes I mix it up and I'll go, do a Wim Hof breathing exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's 11 or 12 minutes. Um, then I get on the yoga mat. If I'm not doing a morning class, which I really only do now on the weekends, a hot power vinyasa class at my local Bend and Breeze studio in Hollywood, I'll do a 10-minute in my apartment, in my living room, um, just light flow, light stretch sequence, some cat cows, child's pose, wrist stretch, uh, some sun salutations, some downward dogs, and with the yogi squat and some twists. Generally takes me about 10 minutes. And then, and I know this sounds like a lot, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
try to put it in context, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, if I'm not if I'm not working out that day, I go to the steam room, which fortunately we have
Mm-hmm.
in the building here in Hollywood. If I do work out that day, then we'll do cardio maybe 3 days a week, and then lift, one or 2 days a week right now at this point in
Mm-hmm.
my life. Um, and then I would do the steam room after, and then come back, take a shower. I've recently started integrating cold showers in the morning after.
Yes.
Bro, absolute game changer.
Yes.
If you aren't familiar with Wim Hof, that
Yes.
he's known as the Iceman. He really highlights the benefits of cold
Mm-hmm.
plunges and he has some really popular and successful breathing exercises. And the cold certainly helps set the tone. So now I am truly ready for my day. So that might have sounded like a lot. You might have to wake up at 6 a.m. to get
Mm-hmm.
all of these things done by 9 a.m. or whenever you have to get ready to go to work. And as I
Mm-hmm.
travel, I adapt it, I back it up.
Mm-hmm.
By the amount of time that I, need, I'll wake up accordingly. But I've really realized uh, these practices are fundamentally, absolutely essential
Yeah.
for me being able to make the most out of your
Mm-hmm.
day. If you could feel your
Mm-hmm.
best, you could do your best, you could be your best.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
also, just to round that up, sleep is really a
Mm.
fundamental element that
Yeah.
many people,
Sleep on.
undervalue. But you really, people sleep on sleep.
We sleep on sleep. Yeah.
But Andrew Huberman, one of the leading neuroscientists, one of the top podcasters in the world from Stanford University, he has really spoken to me through his very easy to understand messaging about the
Mm-hmm.
importance of not just getting ideally 8 hours of sleep, but what you do in that hour before you go to sleep and putting on blue
Yeah.
light glasses and minimizing
Yeah.
light, and then what you
Mm-hmm.
do as soon as you wake up by trying to integrate sunlight within an hour
Yeah.
or first few minutes waking up.
Yeah.
So these things, I'll try to put them in the show notes. I know it seems like a lot, but when you get
Mm-hmm.
in the routine of doing them, they come second nature. And these are all things, if you didn't hear the initial podcast, one of the initial podcasts Jordan and I did on her show, the
Mm-hmm.
Breakdown the Build Up podcast, which is
Mm-hmm.
resuming season 2 later this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was fortunate enough to have a coach, my guru from yoga, my friend, my teacher, Chloe Ravel, aka the Gemini Rising, help me develop these morning practices and routines. And if it's a friend of yours, if it's a spouse, a parent, a coach, a guru, a YouTube channel, there are resources available to help you develop these routines. And I hope, if
Mm-hmm.
nothing else, one of these things could resonate with you and hopefully help have an impact on your life, which is something that would bring a lot of value and happiness to Jordan and my life if
Yeah.
we're able to do that. Would you agree?
Yes. And one thing I want to add in that, because I want to know something that I've just noticed in talking to women, and is that not enough women track their monthly cycle in order to know what each phase of the month, how it's affecting them, and um and what they need during that month in order to like support themselves. And um the our society is not set up around a woman's monthly cycle, and it's really kind of set up for a lot of yang energy, which is a lot of doing and a lot of producing and a lot of action. And I think in order to balance that out, um, and for me, I have gotten the most out of myself by following my being in tune with my monthly cycle. And
Interesting.
and yeah, and that goes with just knowing what my rhythms are and what's happening in my body. And because like I know, I mean, obviously, Evan, for you it's different because you don't have that monthly cycle. I think like men, I have to look into this more, but men might have like a sun cycle or something, or I know they have like hormonal shifts, but I'm not even that familiar with it, and I don't think that's something that's like that I've you know I don't know that much about. But women's cycles are so nuanced, like it's broken up into four different parts, and it's supposed to go with like the cycle of the moon, and each one of those four phases of the menstrual cycle is like it brings something different, both spiritually, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And that is not in the conversation around productivity and around efficiency and around getting things done and producing and actualizing enough, because there's a lot of women that don't like they're a week before they get their periods, and they're going more insular and probably experiencing PMS symptoms. And I feel like it's a big joke in society, like, oh, we're all just crabby and emotional. And but it's like, no, it's a serious thing that's happening in your body in response to something that didn't happen, getting pregnant. And for me, those times, like, this is why I feel like it's so important to be in tune with when I say in tune with my natural rhythm, that's what I mean. Like in tune with what is happening in my body on a day-to-day basis and how it's speaking to me. So I do it kind of from that way instead of like reverse ordering it, where I just like beat my body into submission of how I think it should behave and be, where I'm like, let me listen to what's happening today when I wake up. So when I wake up in the morning, I feel like I just kind of look around. Like, I woke up, I look around the room, and if I guess I could call it a meditation, but I will just be quiet and like
First time?
be hello.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I heard something else. But I would just be quiet and listen to what's coming up for the day. And sometimes I won't even like I'll stay there if I don't have anywhere like to be, but I'll stay there until something calls to me and I have to do it, because I'm so like I don't want to be busy just to be busy. And I've allotted these 2 days for me to be in flow and see what happens and just be open to the unknown of the day. That I know this is not everybody's like day-to-day life or something, but this is kind of like, because I work 3 days a week. Like, I created my life to fit this model where I have time to like um have this kind of space and time and like luxury to do this. But I just let myself be until something inside of me, like, even if it's just like go and get coffee, or go like or I'll just go to my studio space, or go sit in front of my books and open something up. Like, it's so organic, and I listen to myself. But again, it depends on like where I am during my monthly cycle, and listening to that. So like I'm hearing you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, like like my process is like super different from that, because I have struggled so much, Evan. Like, I've struggled so much thinking that something was wrong with me because I couldn't make my body submit to um having like a more strict daily routine like that. And then I feel like I surrendered that and was like, oh, I'm just going to listen to myself and what I need for the day. And for me personally, that has like made me a lot more, like a lot um more at peace, because I feel like I'm going with my flow. And I have learned to try to like embrace that, embrace that, because if not, I kind of end up being like, I can't do it. And but I feel like it's like with like diet, like people and dieting and like diet culture. Like, why can't I lose weight? Why can't I do this? Why can't I? And it's like, well, maybe that's not for you. Maybe there's a different way that fits your natural way of being, that will make you feel more in line with who you are, instead of feeling so bad that these other models like don't work for you, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe not now or something, or maybe not ever. And I feel um like I get so like, I'm not going to do this thing until like it calls to me. And until like I'm going to put it off, and I'm just really not going to do it until. And I got a lot of those things from Abraham Hicks and from Esther Hicks.
Mm.
And yes, and to be like driven for what feels good. And and that has like relinquished so much pressure, and I feel so much more like at ease, because I'm like, no, because I know that there's times throughout the month like where I'm like in my yang energy, and I'm doing and I'm going, and all I need is like the a mission for the next 2 weeks, and then I have all the energy in the world to do it. But then like at a different point in my cycle, I'm just writing, thinking, uh daydreaming more, expressing more, having more meaningful conversations with my friends, connecting. And then the week or so before, um I menstruate, I get my cycle, I menstruate, I'm like, my energy levels are going down, and whatever self-care practices that I do have to adjust to where I'm at. So if I like, I don't even do like hardcore um exercises or whatever, but just a variety of exercises. Like you could do, like if it's yoga, you can do a more, I'm not even versed in like a lot of different kinds of yoga, but maybe like for one part you're doing like Pilates or something when you have more energy, or a lot of weight.
Active.
Yeah, like a lot of heavy cardio and a lot of heavy lifting. But for women, doing all of that a couple days before you get your period is not like suggestible. And it's probably better to do like yin yoga, or like
Yes.
yin
Passive.
meditations, or being slow, staying in one spot for a long time, those kinds of things. Like, so it's an organic flow. And that is very hard for women to do in our culture. It is not set up for that. And I think a lot of women get the short end of the stick when it comes to things, because like your body is literally doing something else, and society is like produce, produce, produce all the time, all
Right.
month long, and that is very hard to keep up with, you know and I've had conversations with women where they're like, oh, I don't know, you know where I'm at in my cycle, or like, oh, that makes sense, I was really like, feeling isolated or whatever. It's like, yeah, well, absolutely, because your body is going through this internal process, and it doesn't mean anything about your ability to achieve. It's something that's happening that is natural,
Oh
and
man.
and we try to stop it. We don't want that, and we don't want to stop it because we want to compete, and be on the same playing field and stuff. So part of like my process and my routines take like a monthly approach, where week by week there's a different thing going on in my body that I try to take into account, and that whatever it is that I want to go for, and whatever it is that I want to achieve, I have those things in mind, so I can have a lot of grace and patience with myself.
Which is another great reason to journal, so you can keep track of these processes and
Mm-hmm.
progresses, so you can be more mindful and aware. And my favorite line from one of my favorite lines from yoga practices: listen to your body
Mm-hmm.
and be cognizant of it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna actually uh, ask Chloe after this if
Mm-hmm.
that's something that she integrates into her
Yeah,
coaching
I'd
practice
be.
with other women, because
Yes,
it's really
yes.
it's really powerful stuff. And
Yeah.
I really was, as a man, obviously, I was not uh really fully cognizant and aware of how, not
Mm-hmm.
just that actual week, but how the week before that and the week after that, and the cycles of the moon, and how all of those things truly do factor into a
Mm-hmm.
woman's life. It's
Mm-hmm.
so you definitely just opened my eyes up to something, um, and I'll be,
Mm-hmm.
that much more considerate with the women around me in my life
But
that
don't
I
do one
hold
of
space
those
for.
things where they like hold you accountable or something, and then you're like, are you gonna get your period? Like, don't
Eh,
pull one of those. That's not what's happening here. But it's just
no,
like,
no.
yeah, because I feel like that, and it's very like tiptoey, because I feel like even saying that is like, oh yeah, like, you're crabby or whatever, so like you must be on your period, and like I'm not going to take you seriously because you're just PMSing at this point in the month. But sometimes like it kind of, you know, those things make sense where I know if an event is coming up or something, like I'm like, where am I at in my cycle, and how am I going to need to prepare my body and make space for myself so that I can like get the best out of myself, but not
Right.
by, you know, making my body do what it's not wanting to do, but to support it. So, yeah, so I feel like, with your approaches and like everything you have, and like if a woman were to do that, if I were to do that, I'm like, oh, I would have to consider where I'm at in my cycle and then adjust accordingly, like to integrate like a natural flow with like a more strict regimen, if that makes sense, like a balance.
No, that makes all the sense in the world to me. And related, separate but related, there's something you posted on your Instagram stories that um, I actually have seen a lot of people post about that I
Mm-hmm.
would ask you in the course of this conversation
Mm-hmm.
because it is related. It's come up. What does full moon in Pisces mean? That's a
That's
cycle, and
funny. Okay, so
I
I'm
keep
like a
seeing
super nerd. I'm a low key, I'm low key, high key
eh,
nerdy about astrology.
not that low key, but okay.
I feel like like coming more out of the closet. Like I like astrology. But I like anything and everything that helps you get to know yourself better so that you can be less worried in life and just be more okay, like more self-acceptance, more okayness, more peace. And so okay, so well, there's a full moon, and it's uh in the constellation of Pisces, and each one of, or the zodiac constellation, so each one of, the zodiac signs, um each one of the zodiac signs are connected with a planet, and each one of those kind of planets and zodiacs have these archetypes or like mythologies built around them. And and astrology is like the point in the stars where you were, uh like a visual map of the sky and constellations and planets, um when you were born and where you were born. So depending on, your birth time and your birthplace, you can quite literally put it in a calculator and get this visual, map of where the stars were when you were born. And by reading those different placements and reading those different like aspects and stuff, you can get a full picture of who you are and what, and a broader perspective of your personality. So in Western astrology, we kind of really just go with your sun sign, or like with, you say like I'm a Pisces or I'm a Cancer or whatever. But what we really mean to say is that when you were born, the sun was in the sign of Cancer when you were born. But there are also, if you punch in all your information in a birth chart or whatever, it'll tell you where Venus was when you were born, in what constellation. It'll tell you where Mars was, and in what constellation when you were born. And each one of those planets, again, and each one of those constellations have archetypes, have like their own personalities, I would say, and mythologies, and that affects you in different ways. So, and that makes sense for a lot of people when they're like, oh, I'm a I'm an Aries, but I kind of don't always relate to that, and then you plug in your information and you see your birth chart, and then you see that the moon was in a different sign and constellation when you were born, and that helps you understand yourself on a deeper level. Or you see that Venus was in, and Venus kind of rules how you love. I'm still getting to know all this stuff, but how you love and how you experience beauty and a lot of romantic relationships that could have been born in, or you that could have been in the like uh Sagittarius or whatever. So it kind of makes sense because you're like, oh well, Sagittarius, you might relate with more Sagittarian energy when it comes to your love relationships, but in other ways you relate to Aries energy. So yeah, I'm totally nerding out on this.
And
This
thankfully
is
the
all stuff that
resources.
I've like, yeah, that I just, Google and research like on my own, and I follow, that little obsession where it leads. And then I talk out loud. I'm like, oh shit, I've been like,
No, but you want to know
for
what?
a long time.
There is some science to. Obviously, there's science to it, and there is some practical applications in the real world to it, and it is becoming, as we were previously discussing, the quote unquote woo woo is now becoming maybe not
Yeah.
mainstream just yet, but more like socially acceptable. And once again, talking about practices that you can integrate into your life to give you more
Mm-hmm.
clarity, more balance, more mindfulness. So if you,
Mm-hmm.
if you find solace in, you know, human design,
Oh,
or
I love human design. Yes. I
or
love human
following your
design.
chart, or any of
Yes.
these
Yeah.
things, it doesn't make you a witch. Um, th- Thankfully, Jordan and I have avoided witches fairly well up to this point. Dodged some bullets there, but
Like a tiny bit, like, but the thing is that like I have such a big well of inspirations and sources that, I don't want to say like I'm this or that or whatever, because I think a lot of those things just really lead to the same like basic human need for love, and to be loved again. So it's kind of like wherever it comes from, it needs to come from. But yeah, like I will get like really into astrology and human design, like any kind of like psycho spiritual metaphysical thing that has practical applications. Yeah, like I'm into that. So I love like if somebody's like, hey, have you tried like this thing, and I'm like, oh, what is it? And I love to, to plug it in to find like a deeper level of like who I am and understand myself better. And like, oh
whatever
yeah, like, oh, that makes sense why I'm like that. Like, um so yeah, it just helps to get to know myself and be easier on myself to be like, oh shoot, that's why I don't do X, Y, and Z. And I just need to accept
amen.
that.
And the last topic, the last thing that, to your point you just made, that people maybe aren't conscious or cognizant that they're doing or that they should do, that's becoming more and more prevalent in modern society as well, is unlearning. And we're,
Mm,
societally taught to do X, Y, and Z and don't follow, ABC. The book says to do this. Well, those books, I think we're ready to throw a lot of them out the windows. And I'm not talking
yeah.
about the ones in the school system, but
Mm-hmm.
you once again find what works well for you, dabble, experiment, try meditating, try breath work, try journaling, try taking a walk out in nature or a hike, or doing something that's not going to push you so far out of your comfort zone that you feel truly uncomfortable, have an anxiety attack. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of value to be found in the unknown, and
Mm,
in a lot of these practices that we outline. So if somebody wants to connect with you, Jordan, or maybe
mm,
ask a follow-up question, or maybe have you, who knows, host an AIM meetup for their business or at their office or
yes,
beyond, what are some ways to get in touch with you?
absolutely. So for AIM, you can email art and its meaning at gmail.com. You can email me at jordanguzman1 at yahoo.com. And different ways to support us as well. We are trying right now to get 501c3 status so that we can receive grants and apply for grants and get funding to bring our classes, locally, regionally, and internationally. And in order to do that, we need to raise the money to get that paperwork filled out and get it ready to go, because we are like bursting at the seams and working, behind the scenes to envision and daydream and put it all, into like make it happen. So, and in order to do that too, we need support. We need financial support. Um, and we've been receiving like bits and pieces here, and we're so grateful because anything and everything counts. And part of that spiritual practice, like, and how we integrate it, is being open to receive and being seen as like we're doing a good work here, and we're like you said, Evan, wanting to be altruistic, and our intention is simply to fulfill our calling. And we want to be open to people in our community supporting us. And so that email is artanditsmeaning@gmail.com. You can also email me personally again at jordanguzman1 at yahoo.com. We are also, other ways that you can support is through art supplies, because we're trying to get a specific art supply set for our children's classes. So if you have any art supplies that you're not using anymore, or you want to get rid of but that are in good condition, email us. And like Evan said, we are also looking for different venues to host us, different zero empty space artists too. We've built like a great relationship with the artists at Gulfstream Park, and I'm so thankful for Andrea Dent and Pablo and Sandy too, helping us out and hosting us. And they've been so kind and generous this whole way. And the artists have been extremely receptive to what we have to offer. And we have seen a lot of artists who've come that don't have spaces there, but who are checking it out, and who've heard of it. So we're looking for other artists too to host us. And because we like to travel around and see what else is going on in the community, and kind of and really expand our reach. I also want to kind of plug Melissa's art as well. So you can find her at Melissa Lynette Art on Instagram. And mine is Jordan Guzman Art on Instagram. I'm really active there than on any other social media platform. So you can always DM me. And AIM South Florida is our Instagram handle there, and you can also DM us, and either one of us will respond.
And we did do a podcast previously with both Jordan and Melissa, with video and visuals where you can see them. They're both lovely young ladies in their own regard. And I strongly do. We're glad to support through our Zero Empty Spaces initiative, which is a cousin of Choose954 under our agency, the Unitas Group. So we're glad to support you. We're glad that you've been able to make beautiful connections and inspiration and critique happen out of this space. So we encourage any artist of any level to join. If you are an artist that's looking for more connection and feedback and community, we also are very excited to announce the hosting of our next Choose954 Artist Potluck Dinner. This one's going to be at a new venue for us, a potential venue, actually a really good venue for AIM. We're going to host our next dinner at the Gasper Arts Center in Dania Beach off of Federal Highway. We know Laura. She used to be with the El Mercado Gallery Studios in downtown Hollywood. And COVID, unfortunately, they had to close, but she found a bigger and even, more powerful space, because she can, I think, have more kilns and more studio space in there. So Artist Potluck, so a free open event. You bring a dish for maybe 5 or 6 people, because not everybody eats everything. And it's a really cool thing. We go around the table, we introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about our work, get some feedback, some beautiful friendships, collaborations, and various other things have come out of that. That's going to be on Sunday, September I want to say 25th at 5:30 p.m. So you can find out more. Choose954 Artist Potluck on Facebook, Eventbrite, all that good stuff. And one other cool one, two last ones coming up this week. The return of the Female Brew Fest, the 5th annual celebration of women in the craft beer industry, either brewery owners or brew masters, brew mistresses. It's going to take place at the Kimpton Goodland Hotel on Fort Lauderdale Beach, behind all the big hotels. It's one of those older kind of mid-century modern style hotels. It's a really cool venue. We held the event there last year. It's an event that my business partner's wife, Frances Martineau, pioneered and has been very well received. She has over 40 breweries. It's a great day, a great celebration of women. And we would encourage you to come out and attend. It's part of Greater Fort Lauderdale Beer Week, which is another initiative of our agency, the Unitas Group, where we work to create platforms, highlight and showcase respective creatives in their fields. And Andrew and Francis are big fans of craft beer, so they wanted to highlight and showcase the talented brewers and breweries in our community, which has its own ale trail and so many great venues that are now finally starting to get the notoriety and support and respect that they deserve. So there'll be a week-long celebration of events starting this week. So you can find out more GFLBW, Greater Fort Lauderdale Beer Week, and Female Brewfest. And then Female Brewfest is Saturday, September the 17th in the afternoon. Later that evening, we'll continue hosting tours of the Downtown Hollywood Art Walk, which is another free event. We host free tours at 7 and 9 p.m. Myself, Evan Snow, of the gallery, studios, and the art walk in general. And at 6 p.m., my dear friend Jill Weisberg, who's the project manager and curator of the Downtown Hollywood Mural Project, she leads a free tour just about the murals, which are always changing, always evolving. Just had a brand new one added by Marcus Borges, aka Funky Paint Grabster, a legendary Broward County-based muralist. So you can find all this on the social medias at Choose954, on Eventbrite, and where you could also find AIM as well. And we did want to wrap up with one question, well, really two questions, but one question that we'd like to ask all of our guests on the Choose954 podcast here, Jordan, and that is, why do you choose the 954?
The 954 chose me.
Hey, good answer.
I really do think that, because just how each step and each impulse and each instinct that I have listened to has led me to this area. So, and just the connections that I've made here, the ways that when I left this traditional model of church that I put myself in for a little bit, I loved the community aspect of it. I loved being able to be into the performing arts, I was mostly involved in performing arts during that time, not that much visual. But ever since I left that, I always, had been craving that. And again, going to college and having that community that was so inundated with the arts and thinking about it, people thinking about arts all day, every day. And then leaving that community and in search for community as an adult is very hard. And I think, and if you go into the community and you don't always find those spaces with people who can relate, who you relate with, who you really just connect with on a very natural level, And it takes a lot of trial and error to find that. And then sometimes you just have to create it. So I feel like for whatever reason, this has been an area that I can create the community of people who I want to see and talk to and be, and do life with. And not just about the arts, but in general. Like I'm just trying to call my soul tribe and my soul family to me. And I think by having this area to create in and create these spaces, like I feel like it's a really nice give and take with the area, like being able to give back and also receive from it too. So yeah, that's why I choose to stay here. Like I moved here
Amen.
by everything else, but so I choose to stay here too because I want to create this. And I couldn't create it in Orlando for the timing wasn't right. I didn't want to create it there. I didn't see it there. So I know this whole area has so much to offer, and there's so many people, like there's no scarcity of connection and creativity. And sometimes you got to be the one to like create it and be the beacon, like or just create it so that other people can come. Because if you're just waiting around for people to like come to you or whatever, or waiting around, or being complacent and like, oh, I don't know anybody, or nobody thinks like this, and I see that people are like this and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, well, just do your thing, and then and then you connect with people. So it's been a lot of trial and error, but the fruits of that labor of just being intentional about building community and expressing myself here has, like, I mean, reaping the rewards of that it's invaluable.
I love that you mentioned the reciprocity,
Reciprocity. Yeah.
reciprocity, reciprocating. To
Mm,
give,
mm-hmm.
yes, that is, and I just try to experience the art scene in Orlando and noticed it is kind of few and far between as well. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that we uh, have you not only choosing the 954, but choosing to remain in the 954
Yeah.
is something that we strive for. I mentioned and alluded to previously the return of your podcast. Could you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about what viewers and listeners can look
Mm.
forward to with season 2 of the Breakdown the Build Up podcast?
Yeah, it'll be season 3.
Ooh,
Um, yeah, it'll be season 3. And so my podcast is called Breakdown to Build Up. It's a podcast on existential living with me as the host. And what I talk about there is essentially existentialism, like thinking about life. And I've started that in October, I believe, or end of September last year. And then I did a series, like the first season, a series. It was probably like one every week or one every Sunday. And then I paused, lived life, and then I did another short burst in 2022. And then I've taken an even longer pause because I felt like I had a lot more life to live, and reworking it. And I wanted to give the podcast the time and space to breathe. And so I'm kind of like getting back into the game again. And I'm so somewhere in between now and January, maybe. I don't want to put like a time on it because I know that when I do it, the time will be really right, and I really trust that. And I want to have more dialogues with people, because before it was like I had the one with you, and then I wanted to like express myself in a different way. And but I feel like I'm ready for it to kind of take a new life. So, and I need to fall in love with it again. And I do the same things with my paintings. Like I'll paint something and then put it away for a little while, and then when I work on other stuff, and then when it's ready to come out again, it's ready to come out. And I don't want to put that pressure on myself, and I want to let it be enjoyable. And that's how I've wanted to keep it enjoyable. So yeah, end of this year, early next year, um, be on the lookout. And I'm hoping to have more conversations and have other people on, like daily people. Like I want to have like my cousin come on and talk about childhood, like those kinds of things. So like very like day to day conversations that are like relatable, you know, to
Okay.
because I'm like really I love like deep things in mundane life and deep things in everyday life, and that you don't always have to like go to some, you know, super spiritual retreat all the time or be in like the throes of like spiritual ecstasy to get enlightenment and downloads and all that stuff. It can happen in the very like in the most simple ways. So yeah, I want to connect with other people on there.
Amen. Well, we'll definitely be glad to continue sharing through Choose 954 Social,
Thank
your
you.
podcast, and helping send the reach. Of course, it's our pleasure.
Yay,
And
thank you so much.
oh, my pleasure. And one last thing to close on that I know is very important to your life that became very even more important to your life this week. Can you share about your relationship and the importance of cats in your life?
Oh my god.
And the
Okay.
podcast takes a wild turn.
It takes a while, sir. Cats. Oh my god.
What happened?
No, I'm just saying. No, I just let out a big oh my god because I'm
Okay.
like thinking cats. I have loved cats ever since I was a kid. I wanted to be a cat. I mean, cats, horses, and cheetahs, and then elephants later. But cats, horses, and cheetahs are like my totem animals. And cats in particular because of their like tie to, you know, like spiritual psychic abilities. And you know, I guess like in history, like with witches and stuff like that, but like even before that, like in just how they were sacred, like um in ancient Egyptian culture. And I like to think of them as these like protectors and guardians of like the psychic realm. And especially when I'm sleeping too, like that's just a connection I have with my cat now, where I just feel like she like guards the energy of the space or something like that. And one of my earliest memories of like of wanting to really connect with my cat is buying those little pamphlets that are at the grocery store when you're getting ready to make your purchase. And you know, they have the Arnie comics there, and then like a Weight Watcher or like a weight loss little tiny magazine. And then do you know what I'm talking about, Evan?
I
Like
do know
they have
exactly
a
what
okay.
you're talking.
Yeah, so they're those like are those things that you stare at every single day, like or when you go to the grocery store, and it just becomes so like ubiquitous. But I got there was this little magazine that was like how to read your cat's mind, or like how to talk to your cat. And then I would and my dad got stray animals like off of the street, just like any old stray animal that he find, and rescued it, and we'd have to pick the fleas off of it and clean it up and like nurture it or whatever, like back to health or something like that. And there was so I my dad got a cat. I don't know what year this was or how old I was, but I remember like tracking the cat's habits, and um and then reading the book and doing, you know, it was like how to like read your cat's tail movements, and what does this meow mean or that meow mean. So I would write in my journal like at this, you know, 9 a.m. baby blinks at me or whatever, and I would try to send her like telepathic messages, and I'd be like, if you can hear me, like blink twice or something like that. So I feel it's like a twofold connection because it got me really in tune with trying to get really intuitive, like really in just being open to my intuition at a young age. And at the same time, seeing these like spiritual qualities and embodiment of spiritual themes, I guess, inside of an animal and what they could teach me. So yeah, I've always had a natural connection to cats, and living on my own and having my own apartment for about 2 years, I knew that I wanted to get one, not having been able to have one before, and having my own cat. And I rescued Marty from King's Orphan Kitties. You can follow them on Instagram. And I got her when she was like 3 or 4 months, and she was rescued from the soccer stadium in Miami, and they named her Marta after Marta Silva, the soccer player. And I don't keep up with soccer like that, but and I kept the name because I like what it meant. And so yeah, I've had her for like 2 years. No, wait, 2021. So in May, it'll be, what's the math on that? Oh my God. Well, I've
Feels
had
like
her for
yesterday.
yeah, it feels like just yesterday. So I had her. So the other day I came home, and it's not uncommon to leave cats alone. But I came home, and usually she greets me at the door and is like crying at me, wondering where I've been and telling me all about everything that's happened in the house and being really chatty. And then we meet on the carpet in my apartment on her favorite rug. We have a little moment, and she calms down, and then I get back to whatever I was doing. And that didn't happen that morning. And I was kind of like knew something was wrong. And I went to my closet, and I'm like screaming out her name, and I hear like a muffled meow, and I tore up my whole closet like trying to find her. And she was trapped in between, like the water heater in my closet is against the wall, so there's a little nice wedge, and she fell in there somehow and couldn't get out, and she was head first, and I had to pull her out from her tail, and she was like all incapacitated. And it was like horrific for me. It was like my one cat that I had as an adult, and she died right now. Like it was it felt like very tragic in the moment. And she's a-okay. She's like 1,000% back to normal. Didn't even take that much time to bounce back. And I completely forgot how resilient cats are. Like I've had a bajillion cats in my childhood, and they like have suffered through like crazy traumas, and then they're fine. So, but she's my little baby and my little cat, my first little cat. So of course it's like, you know, having a first child or something, where, you know, being like really overprotective of her. And yeah, so after that it like sparked a whole, I started painting again, because I was just thinking about my connection to her. And yeah, so I had this intention, because I ended up taking her to the ER in the hospital, and then she was all like jacked up, and I was like, I'm going to take her home, and I'm going to like nurse her to health. I'm going to caretake for her and like, you know, feed her and all this stuff. And then I started seeing that she really didn't need me to do any of that stuff at all for her, and that she could completely take care of herself and nurse herself back to health. And I feel like that was a big lesson for me, um, that she has her own instincts and her own way of doing things, and she knows her own body and when she's ready to eat and when she's ready to drink. And all I had to do was just back off and let her do her thing. And I feel like that's me too. Like I see myself in that way, because I'm like, wow, I really thought that I needed or that I have, you know, the inner resources, that we all have the inner resources to really care for ourselves and to really like go with our own rhythm and our own flow, and we're stronger than we think. And I feel like I didn't give her that benefit, you know, of the doubt, that she would know how to nurse herself back to health. So I feel like that's a really big metaphor for like how I see myself. So yeah, she took on like a whole other level of importance and meaning for me.
Well, now I'm going out and getting the cat. So there we are. Okay.
I mean, people can
Now,
say the same thing about their dogs, but I just don't have like that strong of a connection, you know?
well,
But animals in general, like they just have something to teach you, you know?
except my dog didn't have 9 lives, but it's okay. She had a good life.
Yeah.
What life is your cat on?
She's on her eighth. I'm
Okay, it's
yeah,
good.
she's on her eighth. She's still good. She's still good. She
Good
just lost
run.
her first life last week.
It's been a very good
Yeah.
run. I really appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you taking the time. We just broke our record of longest Choose 954 podcast. If you made it this far, we sincerely appreciate you tuning in. Would love to hear any feedback, thoughts. Love to hear why you choose 954. If you know somebody doing something good in the community and impactful, similar to Jordan and or myself, and would like to have them share their story, by all means. We also still have AAF Creative Zen, our monthly breakfast lecture series, our mini TED Talk that we host for free every second Friday morning of the month. Had a great event yesterday with Pablo Malco, legendary dancer, choreographer, nonprofit leader in Broward. And I have a dear friend of mine, Ernesto Mandowski, sharing, who's a process improvement wizard, systems optimization expert, and is really passionate about having businesses, business owners, and startups optimize their processes using tools that he swears by. And he's already helped me tremendously just with being my accountability partner, writing my first book and my memoir. That's also going to be at Gasper Arts Center the second Friday morning in October, trying to give them some love and trying to bring some new folks in the community out there to check out that space. So you can find this and all the good stuff that's going on the Choose954 social. You can feel free to reach out to me, Evan at choose954.com or choose954 at unitusgroup.com. You feel free to follow us on the social medias, ask us any questions. I'm an open book. And we look forward to seeing you at the next A meetup, at the next Choose954 Artist Potluck, at the FEMA Brew Fest, at Creative Zen, at Fort Lauderdale Art and Design Week in January, and all the good stuff that's coming up. So appreciate your support, appreciate you caring, appreciate you being alive, appreciate you being a human being,
Mm.
and appreciate your interest. We hope you found this to be enlightening and